Good Monday morning. We're watching a nor'easter take shape, our third nor'easter just within the last 2 weeks, almost like a broken record weather pattern here. Now that's going to lead to rain across the area, although this morning kind of sparse and a little bit isolated in nature and on the lighter side too. But as that storm really starts to deepen off the southeastern coastline, we'll see that rain fill on in. And as the winds pick up and draw down some cooler air to catch up with the back edge, we'll likely see things trend over to a transition from rain, I should say, over to some wet snow by later this evening, I think well after the evening commute. Those winds also going to be an issue, especially along the immediate coastline. Gusts up to 40 miles per hour this afternoon right into the evening. There's a look of last 3-hour loop here on the radar imagery. Not a whole lot going on right now. We have some light sprinkles, some light drizzle out there for the most part. And what's happening here is as this is moving on in, it's moving into very dry air. We'll talk about that in a second. See a few sprinkles out there, north side Virginia Beach and northeastern North Carolina. Now I want to show you here dew points across the area because these numbers are down in the lower to middle 30s. Now when you compare them with the actual air temperatures, we're in the low 40s here. So there is a large dew point depression. And when those numbers are farther apart from one another, the air is not saturated yet. Usually when you get precipitation making it from the cloud base all the way down to the surface, we're seeing those numbers matching. The air is saturated at that point. So there's a lot of evaporation going on this morning so far, and that's eating away at a lot of that precipitation. So 43 right now in Williamsburg, 40 Gatesville, 42 in Moyock, and 41 in Virginia Beach. The bigger picture here regionally, you see that kind of falling apart as it tries to lift on into southeastern Virginia and northeastern North Carolina. But the storm itself is still getting generated. You can see that pivot in the atmosphere, center of rotation now just over the northwestern parts of South Carolina. And as this heads towards the coast here, it's going to encounter the warm Gulf Stream waters and develop quite quickly into a pretty potent nor'easter. Now, ahead of that, we do have some winter weather advisories up, mainly just to our south and off to our west. Currently, there are none in Hampton Roads, the closest being Dare County in North Carolina and parts of the Outer Banks there for some wintry weather later on today and into tonight. Let's talk about those winds because they're going to get quite blustery later today. Winds coming right now in out of the north and east, gusting up to 20-25 miles per hour. They come in more out of the north later today and they pick up in intensity. And by this evening, seeing those gusts up and over 40 miles per hour in the immediate coastline, up to around 50 or so in the Outer Banks. It's still going to be gusty inland, but what tends to happen here with coastal system is that the land masses slow it down due to the increased amount of friction. So you're going to get the strongest winds out along the immediate coastline there. Even into the day tomorrow, here we are Tuesday morning, still seeing quite a blustery day. Those gusts still up to 20-25 miles per hour out of the northwest. So it'll keep our temperatures kind of in check up to around 50. So this brings to light the possibility of some tidal flooding. Now we had the last two storms that brought some significant tidal issues. I don't think that's really going to be the case this time around. Latest outlook for the Sewell's Point gauge there brings it to maybe nuisance flooding at the high tide cycle on Tuesday. So keep that in mind there if you live in some of those low-lying areas. Here's how it looks on Futurecast. Again, it really starts to fill on in here this afternoon and this evening as the storm starts to take shape, kind of get more dynamics together with it. We'll see some rain heavy at times, especially into that evening commute. Here we are at 5 p.m. We're going to be needing those windshield wipers as you head on back from work and school. And something interesting that happens here by the time we get towards 8, 9 o'clock, you'll notice a lot of heavier precipitation, darker greens, yellows, and oranges, kind of butted up right against some blues and pinks, indicating that transition line. Well, usually when you get some very heavy precipitation in this sort of changeover scenario, the air about 5,000 feet up, we call that the 850 millibar height, it draws down that colder air to the surface. So when you get the heavier precipitation, it tends to cool the surface layer and we get some sleet pellets that are mixing on in. So don't be surprised if you see that. The actual changeover line pushes along I-95 and points off to the east through the rest of the evening there. And the whole system wraps on up and moves on out of here quickly thereafter. And we kind of move everything out of here and clear out our skies as well. It will be a blustery day again tomorrow. Notice temperatures having a tough time really warming up very much. Still coming in well below average for this time of the year. So how much rain can we expect in total from this whole situation here? Well, about a ½ an inch. We'll average it out. A little bit less to the north, a little bit more to the south where you could pick up upwards of 3/4 of an inch of some of that rain. Now, as we get in that colder air and the winds shift out of the northwest, drawing down the cooler air, we'll see a changeover. Here's about a timeline when you can expect that. Richmond Metro just west of there, 5 p.m. through Williamsburg, maybe the northwestern parts of the peninsula, 7 p.m. and then everybody else through Hampton Roads seeing that changeover occurring 8, 9, maybe as late as 9:30 this evening. How much snow? Again, we talked about how this was not going to be a big issue for us in terms of wintry weather. Not expecting anything on the roadways, much too warm, and of course they're wet as well. So this would be grassy and elevated surfaces, and the farther inland you are, greater chances of that. Maybe a coating to 1 inch, and well off to the west here and northwest, we pick up maybe a couple of inches on those grassy surfaces there. So not a huge deal to worry about, just those those winter weather advisories now to our south and to our west. We'll have another update later on this evening.